Hey guys, welcome to this video. Today we will be taking a look at a gun I built for one of my friends. Well, I didn't really build the entire gun, but I did tune it up for some pretty cool performance, and we're going to get into it. So this gun is a D-Boys SPR, I guess. I'm not really, I don't really know a whole lot about guns, so I can't just name every single gun out there. To me, it looks like an M16, so I think it's an SPR. Anyway, there's some really weird things going on with this gun, like the buffer tube. It doesn't act like the buffer tube that came with this gun isn't the actual buffer tube that should be for it. It needs to have an actual AEG buffer tube, and this buffer tube looks like a gas buffer tube. It really is just weird. So it doesn't really fit on right. So the customer, he jerry-rigged himself to fit on rather tightly, and it actually works. So no complaints there. Now let's actually get down to what I did to the internals, because I didn't really do anything to the externals at all. One of the first things you're going to notice when you pick up this gun is that there's a Mosfet and the whole wiring system hangs outside of it. Now, if you remember correctly, this is the gun that I used, or the gun that I used to install the Mosfet in my Mosfet installation video with the Nuke FET, and that's what this Mosfet is. It's a really, really awesome Mosfet. I love it to pieces. Really easy installation. It came with a lot of good stuff, so I like it great. But with the buffer tube really, designed really weird, I couldn't really wire it to the inside, and that just made me really mad. So the customer said he's going to buy a buffer tube and just throw it through himself, and that'll work just fine. But in the meantime, the buffer tube, is kind of useless as far as like housing wires go. So the wires have to maintain outside, which I'm not too particularly fond of, considering there's a Mosfet, hanging right outside, and I don't really like that. But good thing it's a Nuke FET. It can definitely take whatever damage is going to be dealt to it on the outside. Now onto the cool stuff, like the internals. So first we're going to start with the hop-up, and then we're going to make our way back down to the gearbox and motor. One of the things that the customer wanted done with this gun was a full metal hop-up unit installed. The hop-up unit he had was a plastic hop-up unit, and everything on it was this nasty, cruddy, clear plastic that just wasn't maintaining accuracy because it was so rickety. So I opted out to replace it with a GMP metal hop-up unit for an M4 and the barrel. Now the problem with the barrel was that the brass is actually corroded to the point to where that whenever it would shoot, it put out such a low FPS. It was shooting around 300 FPS. So what I did is I installed a 455mm retro arms nickel coated brass barrel. It has a 6.04 barrel if I remember correctly, and it's actually incredible quality. I'm really loving this barrel, and it's getting us some amazing accuracy. In addition, I replaced the bucking with a Lonex 70D bucking that I had flat hopped, and I modified the hop up unit for the best flat hop performance possible. I shimmed the hop up arm, and I also put a pink eraser M nub on the arm so that it gets some pretty dang good accuracy, and the nub actually the nub actually contacts the whole hop up patch where it can actually the whole hop-up window basically. So it's not just taking up like part of it like standard stock nubs do. They're just those little circular rubber tubes. This is actually a full block that pushes down on a hop-up window and gets as much of that hop-up bucking contacting that BB as possible, so that you can get the best accuracy, stability, and even FPS. Let's move on to the gearbox now. Now, what do I do to the gearbox? Now the gearbox had the same problem or the cylinder had the same problem that the barrel had. It was brass and had corroded to the point to where it just didn't get any air seal. So I replaced it with a ZCI heat-treated full cylinder. In addition, I got an SHS, a full metal cylinder head in there, and I have a Lonex air seal nozzle due to the lack of no ring on the stock air nozzle. I also replaced the gears with SHS Gen 4 12-to-1 gears, and unfortunately the bevel gear actually broke on that gun, so we have to live with the D-Boys bevel on it. And I actually have the SHS bevel right here. It broke 3 teeth off on a 30 RPS setup, so I can't say that I'm surprised, but at the same time I'm kind of disappointed. The D-Boys bevel gear will actually work way better than this SHS one will, mainly because it's actually built way better, and shouldn't see any problems there. And I put a ZCI high torque motor in that, and if you guys are familiar with your motors, you'll understand that it's 22 TPA neodymium torque motor, perfect for this build that demands efficiency. I also replaced the piston with an SHS 15-tooth piston, and I switched cheese just a little bit, not a whole lot. I took a little bit of weight off just because this gearbox shell isn't exactly the most strong gearbox shell, so I want to take as much weight out the piston as I possibly can, yet maintain the accuracy and the joule creep that I want to maintain, though this isn't really getting any real jewel creep, it can still have a little bit of effect. And I actually kept the stock spring, and I actually got a perfect air seal with it. And with that, we're getting about 410 FPS, which is fantastic for this gun. So I'm really, really liking that. And that's exactly where the customer wants to be. I radiused the Gearbox shell, as you can probably see, and kind of stupid not to if you ask me. I did not use sorbothane. I actually used faucet washer. I find faucet washers way better than sorbothane, mainly because they don't compress. And that can also be a negative. However, it's more of a positive in this case, where you want your AoE to be constant. You don't want your sorbothane to have to reset, because sometimes sorbothane doesn't like to reset very well, and so it's too compressed when the next round comes by, and when your sector gear comes to pick up the piston, the angle is off because your sorbothane is too compressed. Faucet washer doesn't compress, so no problems there, and we get some pretty good protection from gearbox shell fractures, which we won't see anytime soon on this pretty much stock FPS setup. No problems here. Getting a great gearbox functioning here. It cycles fantastically. The ZCI pinion mesh to the D-Boys bevel gear mesh is okay. It's not the greatest, nothing to write home about, but they should kind of wear into each other over time. So let's move on to a chrono video and range test. So I've got 7.4 volt plugged up to the gun right now, 0.2 BBs in the mag, and we're going to test the FPS. So here we go. .406, 406, 407, 405, 404, 405, 406, 406, 404, and 404. So as you can see, we're getting very consistently around 404 to 408 FPS. That's really, really good if you ask me. Only a 4 FPS deviation. Pretty good for the air seal components we're using, and yeah, let's test full auto now. See what we're getting on that. .1200 RPM, and that equates to about 20 rounds per second, and that's about right for what I'd say this gun should be getting. A ZCI high torque motor, 22 TPA on SHS 12-to-1 gears and a 7.4 volt battery. Should definitely be getting around that. On an 11.1 volt, we should be getting 27 to 28 RPS. So now, move on to range and accuracy. So I have the gun right here, loads some .3 BBs, and I'm about a little over 100 feet away from this tree here. I'm going to be shooting at it and seeing how many times I can hit it. So here we go. So there you have it. There's the accuracy and range test of this gun, and it has this weird, whenever I pull the trigger in semi, if I don't pull it all the way, it'll fire in double shot and sometimes even 3-shot. So I'm going to fix that by shaving down, I think it is the part of the trigger contact housing is not allowing the cutoff lever to go down all the way. I think that's what it is. I'm not sure though. I have to check it out and do some tests, but in the meantime, that's its range and accuracy. It's getting pretty good actually. I'm perfectly comfortable if I adjusted the hop up a little bit more. I can get a little bit more range out of it, and I could even hit people. I could say I could hit people with this gun around 240, 250 feet away. That's it, guys. I'll see you guys next time whenever I do a review, a guide, or anything else I do. See you guys later.